I'm Paul Pluta from Paul Pluta Prestige, and today I want to talk about what makes the watch so special. And these are the brands that I've coveted and I've collected. And people say to me, look, you're crazy spending so much on a Patek Philippe. I can get a such and such a brand lot less. And this is a really interesting question. What makes a Patek so expensive? And you look at my complication, the Patek annual calendar. Well, it's pretty obvious there. Day, date, and the day of the week. I mean, it's just a magic complication. You look at a piece like my white gold Calatrava. What makes it so special? Yes, it's made out of white gold. Yes, the attention to detail is spot on, but what makes it so expensive? Well, it's that handcrafted movement. The 22-carat gold rotor on the back. I mean, have a look at how that movement is finished. There are no 90-degree angles on this movement. This is a Geneva seal movement. And Patek's even moved it up a notch with the Patek Philippe seal movement. And this is the whole thing. When you're buying a watch, it's not just the dial or the case that make it a valuable piece. It's the movement itself, the heart of the machine. And this is why quartz has been criticized, because quartz pieces have been criticized for having no soul. So, do you think there's much soul if you buy that Tag automatic and it's got a generic ETA in it? Or if you buy that Breitling and it's got the Valjoux 7750 movement in it? Is there anything unique or special about that heart? I don't think so. And that's why these elite watches are so much more expensive, and why they are so much more better than normal watches that normal people buy. These are special pieces, and it becomes very, very obvious when you start comparing some pieces to other pieces. And even a simple Patek 3919, it's got a beautiful movement inside the case. It's all hand finish. It's made of a precious metal. Even the buckle has a huge amount of attention to detail, and expertise has gone into its creation. And Patek itself, look at the beautiful dials. They're flawless and perfect. And this is what makes the piece so special. But the real heart of a Patek Philippe is the movement itself. This is why you spend big bucks on a Patek Philippe instead of buying a Seiko or a normal generic watch. The Patek Philippe movement itself is a piece of art. No 90-degree angles, all polished, all prepared, bridges, decorated bridges, everything done to the highest possible standard. And the same goes for brands like Vacheron and Constantin. They're a fantastic brand. Vacheron has the same attention to detail that Patek and Audemars has. And this is reflected in the price tag. The attention to detail from a Vacheron can be compared to Patek and any leading watch of the world. Here's a 1960s Vacheron and Constantin movement. Geneva seal movement again, decorated bridges, all polished, all prepared. What a classic, gorgeous dress watch. And this is the reason why, in its day, it was half a year's salary. That's right, half a year's salary. It's the same as my Patek 5107. There are no cheap shortcuts. You want the finest movement money can buy, be prepared to pay for it. And Vacheron itself is a brand which has had this amount of quality for decades. And this is something that does not come cheaply and cannot be reproduced in China with the flick of your switch. No, this is all hand-done, handmade craftsmanship from the finest Swiss houses. And it's very interesting here. A lot of people think that even, the fact that you've got a Vacheron or a Patek, hey, is it really that much better than Rolex or Omega or brands like that there? Very interesting question. And we'll come to that very shortly. The movement in these pieces, Audemars Piguet, attention to detail again is first class. It's not just the Swiss who've done this. Lange, with the Lange one that you can see on the screen here. This is a piece of work that can be compared to a piece of art. And the attention to detail on this Lange here is amazing. Again, the movement is first rate. Have a look at this. Decorated bridges, polished, hand prepped, all done, no expense spared. This is a quality piece. Again, no 90-degree angles. Some manufacturers, like Omega, to put on a display back to try and tart up a turd. Have a look at this piece here. I love the Omega Speedmaster, but I'm not really happy with how they've presented this movement. They've tried to tart it up. It never was a high-grade movement like a Patek or a Vacheron or an Audemars. It's a good movement, but it's not a Geneva Seal type movement, and the quality is reflected in the price. These are a great watch. I love the Omega Speedmaster, but what they've done here is not right. It is not the high-grade movement that you would get in a Patek, a Vacheron, an Audemars. And hence the reason this Patek Philippe here is 6 to 7 times the price. It's all the hand finishing. Have a look at this movement here. No 90-degree angles, 22 karat gold rotor. The attention to detail on this Patek Philippe here is like a Rolls-Royce compared to a Mercedes or a BMW. It's a league apart. It's a league apart. And Patek Philippe has mastered the craft of presenting these pieces with the utmost of decorum. Jaeger-LeCoultre is another brand which may not be Patek Philippe, but Jaeger-LeCoultre has an extensive history and fine attention to detail. This piece on the screen here retails for around $15,000. The reason it's so expensive is, have a look at this beautiful movement. A double barrel movement. The attention to detail. There's 80 pieces of metal in the case alone to allow the piece to flip. The Reverso. Have a look at this movement here with its double barrel 8-day power reserve. Look at the finishing that's gone here. This ain't no Omega with a display back. This is a proper luxury watch. Vacheron has been making luxury creations for decades. This piece here on the screen is from the 60s, and it's as classic as when it was released. Audemars has also released classic pieces, and brands like Jaeger-LeCoultre, who used to supply Patek, AP and VC with movements, are now concentrating on movements and high-end pieces for their own range. And this piece here, the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso Grand Date, exhibits a beautiful back that no Omega, no Speedmaster, no Rolex Submariner, no Rolex GMT could possibly hope to attain. This is a high-class movement, highly finished, highly decorated, and it is priced accordingly. Rightly so. The piece here features an 8-day power reserve, and the movement, the attention to detail of this movement is nothing that would come out of the Rolex house. Patek itself there, famous for its Calatrava model. Here's a piece from the 1950s and 1960s, and this piece here has an attention to detail that's second to none. The movement here is highly decorated, highly polished, highly prepared, and it represents the Geneva house from 50 years ago. Now, this attention to detail all comes at a price. And if we look at a piece, a classic piece, let's look at a classic Rolex Submariner from the heyday. So we're talking plastic Rolex Sea Dweller. Probably one of the most collectible sports Rolexes of all time. But let's have a look at that movement that is on this plastic Sea Dweller. What's the movement like? It ain't no Patek movement. It ain't pretty. No 22 karat gold rotor on this baby. Yes, it's a utilitarian tool watch, but it ain't no highly decorated watch. This Vacheron Patrimony that you can see on the screen here is prepared by Vacheron like no other brand can prepare a brand. The attention to detail on the dial itself shows you the extent at which this piece has been prepared by Swiss craftsmen to make the finest possible piece on the market. The Patrimony is a true dedication to the art of watchmaking, and the movement itself has a piece of attention to detail that can't be seen in the Omega or Rolexes that we've seen on the screen so far. There is no compromise with these pieces. These are high-class pieces and they represent the best in watchmaking technology. If we compare this to, say, a modern Longines, a complicated modern Longines, it's an absolute abomination of horrible sins. Look at that horrid rotor on the back. We look at Hanhart, a traditional pilot's watch in a new reissue type piece of modern proportions, and it's an absolute travesty of craftsmanship. How could you compare this movement here to anything from Patek? You can't. It's a piece of shit. It's a piece of crap. It's a turd. I'm Paul Pluter from Paul Pluter Prestige. Tell me what you think of the movements on these pieces that you've seen on the screen.